Let's move on now to our international desk, and Ditaba Tsotetsi joins us now to open up the team's diary. Let's start with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that started this weekend. And in the mix is some interesting dynamics, including India in the mix there with China, that dynamic unfolding and that relationship.
A very important summit that is happening in China. It kicks off today until tomorrow. It's a two-day summit where we are seeing many or some of the world leaders attending this summit. The Russian President Vladimir Putin is part of the summit. Narendra Modi from India, the Prime Minister, is also part of the summit. But what is important here, or what's going to happen in this summit, is that peace and security will be discussed in this summit. The tariffs slapped from the US will also or likely to be top of the agenda in the summit. But also what is interesting is that India and Russia, they had tensions in the longest time. With this summit, they will try to repair those relations that have been together for the longest time. So, and also what is going to, or likely to be discussed, is the Palestinian question ahead of the UNGA that is coming up next month in September.
Yeah.
Some of the countries have taken a decision to recognize Palestine as a state. As you know, some are rejecting that, especially the US. They did not recognize Palestine as a state. And also lately, the past few hours or days, the US also taken a decision to revoke the visas of some of the officials from Palestine, including the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas. So it's a very interesting development, because if his visa is revoked, he's not going to be able to attend the UNGA summit in the UN next month.
Yeah.
So those are some of the developments that are happening at globally, yes, with that summit.
So it's an interesting major multilateral platform ahead of UNGA, and also taking into context what you just mentioned there, Ditaba. But closer to home on our continent, tell me about former President Thabo Mbeki's foundation and this peace and security dialogue that they are holding. The earliest I remember, it may have been in play for much earlier than that, but the earliest I remember this being signaled was during the Africa Day lecture. That's when I started hearing him talking about holding such a dialogue. Tell me about those plans.
Yes, a very important one again when it comes to the continent. The summit is the dialogue is taking place from next week Wednesday until Saturday. This is where the former president is trying to invite the warring factions on the continent. You mentioned the DRC, Sudan, Mozambique. This is where he's trying to bring them in one roof so that they can resolve their issues, because I think what he has realized is that them alone trying to resolve their problems, it becomes an issue. I'll make an example. He invited also the DRC, but on Thursday, the government of DRC released a statement saying they will not attend this dialogue, saying they are of the view that the former president is taking sides. Remember, it comes after the former president of DRC, Joseph Kabila, visited Thabo Mbeki here in South Africa. Immediately after that visit, Kabila went to Goma and engaged with the M23. You know, the M23 are fighting against the army of the DRC, the government. So after that visit, the government of DRC, they are of the view that Kabila is planning to overthrow the government of the DRC, and it was immediately after his visit to former President Thabo Mbeki. So they say they will never attend the dialogue because they are of the view that he is taking sides. But again, it comes to a question where we will ask ourselves as Africans, are African mechanisms not enough to resolve our problems? Because they say, rather, coming to this summit, they will go to Washington. You remember, Washington is also processing the peace talks, or they rather go to Doha. Doha is also involved in the peace processes in the DRC. So those are some of the challenges that we have on the continent. And also the DRC, I remember there was also a summit between SADC and EAC where they were trying to resolve the issues. Yes, they were trying to resolve the impasse in the Eastern DRC. The M23 took a decision not to attend that summit, saying because of some of their officials were sanctioned, so they cannot be part of that summit that was trying to resolve their issues.
Yeah.
So you see, the issue of DRC, it will take long to be resolved because whoever wants to come and have an input, how they can resolve their issues, some will come and say, I'm not attending this one because of these particular reasons. Then they will, the other one will also, the other party will also do the same and say, I cannot be part of this process because of particular reasons. So it will take time to resolve the issue in the DRC.
So certainly a sense of some momentum for processes that are initiated and driven from elsewhere outside of the continent, but we continue to have difficulties, at least in this conflict, as far as continental homegrown solutions are concerned.
That is true, because even you remember the Sudan, we also have a problem there in Sudan. When he was launching this dialogue, the former president last year, he also invited the delegation from Sudan. It was a problem for them to find themselves in the same roof where they were invited to come and resolve their issues. So we are still waiting to see whether they will be able to attend this second version of the dialogue. Because as we speak, the war is still raging on in Sudan. The government army recaptured the capital city, Khartoum. And last week or 2 weeks back, 2 weeks ago, the civilians were trying to rebuild their homes, rebuilding their life. But at the same time, the war is still raging on. So, they also, we'll see what happens, whether they will be able to be part of the dialogue.
So, but there's certainly an attempt by civilians who had been displaced by the fighting at its peak, an attempt for them to return to the capital of Khartoum.
Yes, that is true. I remember another issue where women in Sudan were also complaining that in terms of the peace processes, they are not being included, but they are the most affected when it comes to conflicts in a particular country. I remember the former deputy president here in South Africa, Mepumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, also hosted some of them, raising their concerns that if women can also be part of the peace processes so that they can also raise their concerns because they are the most affected.
To have a voice in how it all shapes up.
Yes.
Lastly, let's look at Algeria. Tell me about the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair. This is something we encourage. We want more of this, especially now with the difficulties in the international trade system,
It comes at a very important time, critical time, where the U.S. has slapped some of the countries, especially here on the continent, with the high tariffs. So here the African countries will converge to discuss how best they can mitigate the tariffs that have been imposed by the U.S. So the African Continental Free Trade Area will also be part of this, or it will also be encouraged, or African countries will encourage each other to increase intra-trade within themselves, because if you look at the African continent, we have the potential, we have minerals, we can trade among ourselves. So it's a very important conference that is coming up also next week, where African countries, as I've mentioned, that will try to increase or diversify their trade relations with other countries.
Give some momentum to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and just see how far we can get. All right, thank you for that. Ditaba Tsotetsi coming through from our international desk to just give us a sense of the stories that you can expect in the coming week.